North Haven, and welcome to this edition of Sports Talk. I'm Jeremy Farina here with Justin Palel and Holden Pirelli, and we're about to debate some of the hottest topics in sports. We're going to start off with the ALCS and NLCS. Obviously, they've been decided. The ALCS is going to be the Baltimore Orioles and the Kansas City Royals, and then the NLCS is going to be the San Francisco Giants versus the Cardinals. Justin, we'll start with you. What are your predictions for the series?
For the ALCS, I think this is going to be a very great matchup here. I think the Royals are a very good team. They haven't lost yet, and I think that place, honestly, I think Kansas City might be one of the hardest places to play in the whole league, and I think they'll come out victorious in the end, but don't count out the Orioles. I mean, they haven't lost either. They swept the Detroit Tigers, and we debated on the show that they were possibly the best pitching staff in the league, and the Orioles still won. Not to mention they were losing. They didn't have Manny Machado or who else did they have hurt?
Was it Chris Davis?
Chris Davis. They were missing two of the arguably best players on the team. So I think the Royals will ultimately come out in this, but I think it's going to be a good series. I could honestly see this series going 7 games, and I could see the Royals stealing one on the road from Baltimore in 7 games. For the NLCS, I'm going to go with the Cardinals here. I just think they find a way to win every year. I mean, they've been to the NLCS the past 3 years, and even though nobody's really been saying I think the Cardinals are my World Series pick, they kind of just get it done. They kind of shock the world, but they have Clayton Kershaw's number. I mean, all 3 out of the 5 losses for Kershaw in the postseason are from the Cardinals. And he's possibly up for MVP this year. So I just think the Cardinals would carry that into your man, Jake Peavy, and Madison Bumgarner. And I think they'll come away with this for the World Series being the Cardinals and the Kansas City Royals. Very close towns.
I think in terms of the ALCS, you have to go with the Kansas City Royals. I love what the Royals are doing. They're playing great postseason baseball right now. It's all about defense. They don't score a lot of runs, but they play great small ball. They don't have a lot of sluggers, so they rely on a lot of their quick athletic players to steal bases, play small ball, and play just great team defense. And I mean, that crowd in Kansas City is just wild. I mean, the team hasn't been to the postseason since, I think, 1985, so they've been craving this for just decades and decades, and that crowd is just electric. I mean, it's almost like the 12th man in Seattle. Oh. So I think going into Kansas City, it's almost impossible with that crowd for an away team to win. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals. And then for the Cardinals versus the Giants, that's a tough one because the Giants always seem to get through the regular season, and then right when postseason comes around, guys like Madison Bumgarner and Buster Posey really start to turn up their play and show why they're getting paid the big dollars. But I'll have to go with the Cardinals on this one because the Cardinals have shown time and time again that no matter who they lose from their roster, that they're consistently making it back and making a deep run into the playoffs. And I think especially after last year losing the World Series to the Red Sox, that this team is driven to make it back to the World Series and win it this time. I mean, you look at this squad with Wainwright, with Shelby Miller. They have a good 1-2 punch in their pitching staff. And then you look at this team. They still made it to they're almost making it back to the World Series. And look at the players they've lost. They lost Pujols. They lost David Freese. They lost
Alan Craig,
and they lost Carlos Beltran. They've lost all that firepower, and they've still managed to score enough runs to make it deep into the playoffs. And on top of that, they have a young manager right now because their previous manager retired. So you have to look at the squad. This is a young squad, but yet they're managing to get it done. So I'm going with the Cardinals on this one.
I do have to disagree with you guys on the idea of a home field advantage in baseball. I really don't feel that exists. I think that it's equal on both sides because think about when the home field gets advantage. I imagine it being the full count, bases loaded, 2 outs, and the crowd stands on their feet. But that's affecting the hitter, but it's also affecting the batter. And it's vice versa because if the Kansas City Royals are pitching at the moment, your pitcher's got to deal with 100,000 fans, however many people are cheering on their feet, and you have to battle through that as the pitcher, and as a hitter, it's the same way as well. So I really don't think there is much of a home field advantage in the MLB. But if I were to pick, I think I'm going to have to go against you guys and go with the Orioles here. I think that their pitching staff, it's not the greatest, doesn't have that ace at the top of the rotation, but they have guys like Bud Norris. Their offense teams always get it done. These Bud Norris craves the postseason. This guy spent the first couple of his years in Houston, and we know what's happening in Houston with their baseball. So they haven't been where they want to be. But I think that those guys are just craving this moment, and they're not going to let it pass up. Nelson Cruz just comes alive in the postseason. Texas, when he was with Texas, he was always getting the big hit. Has more home runs, win less games than most players did in their time. So I think that he's just going to bring that energy that the team's going to need to really propel them past the Royals in this series. And in the National League, I'm going with the Giants just because they always seem to get there, and because Jake PV, who Holden humiliated me on this show for saying was a great addition at the trade deadline, had a 1.13 ERA and 6-0 in the month of August. I think that's a pretty big impact for just adding depth to the roster. But anyways, other than that, they have a great staff, a great group of guys. Obviously, Buster Posey, Pablo Sandoval, soon to be free agent. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. But I think that San Francisco is going to get out. I think San Francisco is going to take the World Series this year. I think that it seems like every other year this team's in it or winning it. So I think that they're definitely going to be. I think they're going to be the team that takes it in the end. But moving on, we're going to talk about a team that was recently eliminated, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and their manager, Don Mattingly, obviously under some fire. Should he be fired? Should he not be? Holden, we'll start with you. What do you think about Don Mattingly?
I think Don Mattingly should definitely be fired from his post as the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, you look at the names on this roster. Greinke, Kershaw on your pitching staff. Then you look at the firepower. You got Kemp, you have Gonzalez, you have Puig, you have Hanley Ramirez. I mean, you have all these guys on your roster. You're backed by Magic Johnson and his owners group rolling out one of the biggest payrolls in baseball right now, and they can't get it done. I mean, if they got to the World Series, even if they got to the NLCS, I would say, okay, maybe Don Mattingly shouldn't be fired. But they didn't even get it that far. Okay? They have all these players, all this money to spend on all these players, and they just can't get it done. And a lot of people point to the lack of runs scored and the play of Kershaw, but it's the manager's responsibility to get his players to play up to their potential. And we know what Kershaw can do, and we know what Puig can do, and we know what Gonzalez can do. So it's up to Mattingly, and it's his responsibility to get his players fired up and their minds right and ready to play. So I definitely think Mattingly should be let go, and maybe a guy like Ozzie Guillen should step in.
I'm going to disagree with Holden here. I don't think this was Donnie Baseball's fault here. It wasn't his fault that Yasiel Puig struggled in this series. It wasn't his fault that the ownership or the general manager didn't get a good bullpen to back up his starting rotation. I mean, everybody talks about Zach Greinke and Clayton Kershaw, but if they can't get through 8 innings to get to Brian Wilson in the ninth, their bullpen a lot of the times doesn't get it done. So there might be a lot of pressure on the starters there. I don't think he should be fired after one series. I mean, they do have the one place you could fault him is they do have the largest payroll in the league, and yet, like Holden said, they didn't even make it to the pennant race. But overall, I don't think he should be fired. I think you should give him another chance. I believe in second chances. I think if this were to happen again, maybe next year, and maybe Kershaw doesn't produce, or maybe he sits Yasiel Puig again, or some of the key starters because they struggle, and then maybe they should have played. Because personally, I mean, Yasiel Puig ended with a triple the other game, and then he's benched the next game, which I don't think you should have, just to kill the momentum. And I just don't think he should be fired because of this series, because they did have a good season. I mean, they finished first in the National League, so I don't think he should be fired. I think they should give him another chance. But if this does happen again, I think they should let him go.
I have to agree with Justin here. I think there's no way that Don Mattingly should be fired, at least at this point, just because of the lack of productions that were in his players. I understand that as the manager, you're supposed to get them playing at their full potential, but when you look at what his top two stars in the team, you got Yasiel Puig and Clayton Kershaw, arguably the two best players there, and you got Clayton Kershaw pitching in 2 games and just getting lit up by the St. Louis Cardinals, and then you have not Matt Kemp, Yasiel Puig striking out 8 times in an NLDS. That's unacceptable. I think that it's also hard for a manager to be successful when the players hate each other in the locker room. I mean, Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig were constantly seen fighting in many chances. It's hard to have, a team effort here and when someone doesn't like somebody else. And I think back to the Red Sox teams last year, they didn't have the best talent. They had a mediocre team. Not mediocre. I mean, they had a great pitching staff. They had good players, but there wasn't really a ton of superstars on the team. And they were able to win the World Series because they all bonded together and they wanted to win for the city of Boston, what happened there. And that's more powerful sometimes than having the star-studded lineup that this Los Angeles Dodgers team had. So I think that the bigger things, it's not Don Mattingly's fault that these guys aren't coming together like the group they should. I mean, maybe it's the manager's job to do that. But if the players aren't buying into his system, that's not something he can control. I mean, maybe if he's not supporting it, they're not buying into him, maybe you go elsewhere just because of that reason. But I don't think you can get rid of him solely for the reason that you were eliminated in the National League.
So do you think this is a general manager's problem, or do you think it's just the players not getting along? Do you think the general manager picked bad players?
I think it has a lot to do with management because you look at what the situation they're in, and Yasiel Puig bursts onto the scene, and then you have 4 outfielders that are arguably good enough to start in Carl Crawford, Andre Ethier, Matt Kemp, and Yasiel Puig, and you're putting him in a situation where he's going to have to sit one of these guys, and the guy that gets sit is not going to be happy. He's going to want to play. He's obviously arguably a star in the league. I mean, all these guys at some point in their career were, the face of the Dodgers. So it's going to be hard for him to bench one of those guys. And that's what creates the turmoil. Matt Kemp's not playing as many innings as he wants because, this young kid from Cuba is playing over him, and he's not happy with that. And that's what creates the turmoil. I think once Yasiel Puig bursts onto the scene, if you think he's the guy you're going to go with for the next 15 years in your franchise, you have to either dump an Andre Ethier or Matt Kemp. I mean, the Red Sox were very interested in Matt Kemp at the trade deadline, and they didn't really do anything to look to get something for him. They almost brushed it away. So I think you can blame it more on management than you can on Don Mattingly.
I agree.
Moving on, we're going to go to the NFL and just go through 3 types of teams we're going to pick. The team that we think is the best in the NFL right now, a surprise team that you think is doing better than you thought they would, and then a disappointment team. Justin, we'll start with you.
For best team in the NFL right now, I'm going to go with probably the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, they did come off a loss, but I mean, you could almost put these guys as like your most surprising team because we knew they were going to be good after that near playoff run they had last year, but we didn't know that. I didn't think they were going to start off as they did. I mean, they are in a tough division, so it's going to be tough. But I just think with the defense they got and the running game they got, they are tough. They don't have a star quarterback. I mean, Fitzgerald's kind of he hasn't been the same guy he's been. I mean, last week on the show we said that he was in at least he was in my top 5. So I think he's still a good player. I just think I wouldn't want to play them if I was in the NFL, and I just think that right now they're my favorite team. For a surprise team, I would either go with the Cardinals, but I had them as my best. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills here. I mean, I've been an avid fan of Sammy Watkins, and I mean, benching E.J. Manuel, there were some issues with that, like maybe some locker room issues, but honestly, I think he might get a starting job back as the season progresses just because they might realize, I think personally they made a mistake, the Bills. I think you got to go with him. He's a young player. I mean, they didn't get off to a horrible start. So I'm going to go with the Bills there, and I think they could take this division away from the Patriots, whether it's this year, definitely within the next 5 years they'll take it away. And what was the third question?
The disappointment team you've had.
Disappointing team.
Happy with?
I'm going to go with the New England Patriots. I mean, they're not bad where they are, but you have such high expectations for them. I mean, most people think they should be 5-0 right now or 4-1 instead of 3-2. I mean, honestly, if they keep going down this path here, I think they might fall to the Buffalo Bills, I would want that to happen, but I just been an overall disappointment. I mean, they could turn around with Tom Brady, but I'm going to have to see it to believe it.
Holden?
For my most shocking team that's actually doing very, very well right now, I'm going to have to go with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you look at the Dallas Cowboys right now, they're 4-1. I mean, after consecutive seasons of going 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, just being mediocre, Tony Romo just being brilliant in some moments and then terribly awful in the next. But this squad, I think, we predicted them to be so awful this season because they really don't have a defense. I mean, if you look at the defensive side of the ball, they lost Sean Lee, their quarterback of the defense, and you can't really list any other names that really pop out in your mind. They lost DeMarcus Ware. But you look at this squad, and DeMarco Murray is playing like an NFL MVP candidate right now. I mean, you look at it, he's averaged over 120 yards per game over the last 5 games. I mean, he's playing like a stud. And if they keep handing him the ball and going with play action when they give Tony Romo the ball, this squad can make some noise. I mean, I think they can go into Seattle and give them a run for their money. They're just playing. They're playing great football right now, with DeMarco Murray especially, but they have to be leery because he's averaging about 28 to 30 carries right now, and he's on pace to go over 400 carries. And you can't do that with a running back. You're going to kill him like that. And then so if they keep feeding him the ball, but maintaining his health, this squad can do some damage. And for a surprise team that I thought would do better this season, but obviously they're not, is Tampa Bay. You look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. They brought in Lovie Smith, who's an established coach, who's gone to the Super Bowl. You bring in Josh McCown off the season he had in Chicago, and I expected the squad to at least win 2 games so far, and they haven't. You look at the squad with Gerald McCoy, Levante David, Alteron Werner, and Michael Jackson on the defensive side of the ball. They look just atrocious. And you think Lovie Smith's a defensive coach, so they would actually be good on defense, but they haven't. Then you look at Josh McCown, who's stunk up the joint. I mean, last year in Chicago, he had a brilliant season. This year, he looks like Tony Romo. I mean, he just looks plain awful. And you would think with Vincent Jackson, Doug Martin, and Mike Evans, you think the squad would do better on offense, but they've looked awful. And especially in that division with the Saints struggling right now, and with Atlanta still looking a bit shaky at times, and Carolina with Cam Newton and his health problems, I would think Tampa would do better in that division, but they're not. So that's a shocker for me.
And then your best team overall right now?
Best team overall right now, I'm going to have to go with Seattle. I mean, they're the defending Super Bowl champions. They've practically destroyed every single team they've played so far. But Seattle's, except for San Diego, obviously. And San Diego, to me, is another dark horse team. Phillip Rivers is having an extraordinary season. But Seattle's looking very dominant, especially the play of Russell Wilson. And he had over 100 yards rushing against the Redskins on Monday night. I look for Seattle to string up a couple more wins and make it back to the Super Bowl.
For my best team, I'll probably go with the Denver Broncos, just because of the amount of offensive weapons they have. Obviously, just an incredible amount. Obviously, losing Monte Ball, he hasn't really been that great this year, but just having somewhat of a running game obviously helps Peyton Manning in any way possible. They lose Eric Decker. They go out and sign Emmanuel Sanders, who's basically filled the hole very easily, maybe even done better than Eric Decker would have done, just because he's probably a little faster than Decker is. They've been running what the Seahawks been doing with Percy Harvin, using him in kind of that system. I think that they're great. Their defense obviously got much better with the additions of DeMarcus Ware and Aqib Talib. I think that they can definitely. I think that if they play the Seahawks now, it definitely wouldn't have been the same outcome that it was in the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say they would win right now, but it definitely would be a good game. I mean, they went up to Seattle and played them very well, on the road in a hostile environment. So I think that they've definitely proved that they're a much better team than they were last year. For a surprise team that's doing better than I thought they would. Just based on how the Giants started the season and where they are now, I think they've definitely done a great job. I think Andre Williams, their rookie running back, could be a sleeper for maybe Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, the last 2 games he's had 15 carries, 50 yards, a touchdown, doing what he has to do. And then if they can mix him up with Rashard Jennings, that could be a great running system. And then you have Odell Beckham made his debut. He looked very good. If you can have him, Victor Cruz, and then their tight end Donald getting involved in the passing game, then Eli has all sorts of weapons that will be at his disposal. So I think that they can definitely make a run in that defense. Jason Pierre-Paul came alive in the second half when against Atlanta, was constantly having Matt Ryan under pressure. And if you look at Matt Ryan first half and second half, it's a completely different player. So if they can get him going, that defensive unit just coming together, I think they can definitely do some damage in the NFC East, which the Eagles, a lot of people thought they were going to be really good. They've kind of struggled in the last 2 games. So we'll see what can happen there with Nick Foles and see if they can figure that out. For a disappointment, I'm going to have to go with my New York Jets, just because I thought they were going to be able to do much better. The quarterback situation is just a mess. Everything's a mess for that team. Their defense was looking horrible to the San Diego Chargers, lit them up in the last week. I think that it's just hard to watch them right now. I mean, both their quarterbacks threw under 40% completion percentage, no touchdowns, and they got shut out. That's got to be a disappointment on my list.
Should they
just
stick with Vic, you think?
I don't think they should stick with any of. Both these quarterbacks aren't going to be successful because their offensive line is just nothing right now. I mean, both these guys were on their backs more than they were throwing the football, so it's hard to blame either of these guys. I don't think Rex Ryan should be under fire, though. I don't think this is his fault. The Jets need to have a offensive coordinator that is known in this league. He needs to be known as an offensive guru. That's the only way this team is going to be successful because Rex Ryan's defense is always going to show up. I mean, they didn't show up against San Diego, but every other game they've been playing really well and they've been doing what they had to do, getting pressure with that defensive line. The DBs have been doing enough what they had to do. But I think unless the Jets get some kind of guy to run the offense other than what they have now, I don't think this team's ever going to be successful. But right now, I'd have to say they're definitely my biggest disappointment. Moving on, we're going to talk about the NFL MVP race and who we think some front runners are. Justin, we'll start off with you.
I'm gonna go with what Holden said earlier with DeMarco Murray being it. I mean, this guy is just. I think he's personally carried the Cowboys. I mean, their defense has stepped up after losing all those key players, but without DeMarco Murray, I mean, I could honestly see this team without any wins. Another front runner for MVP I could possibly go for, maybe a guy like J.J. Watt on the defensive end. I mean, again, without him, where would the Texans be right now? Maybe 0 wins, 1 win. Peyton Manning's always in the conversation. However, I just don't think. Yeah, he's going to have a good season, but it's not going to be like it was in the past. I feel like he's one in the past just be kind of like a default MVP pick. Maybe he didn't necessarily deserve it, but like who else did, kind of thing. Yeah, so I think my front right now is DeMarco Murray, but don't count out
J.J. Watt,
anybody. I mean, the defensive end is tough. That's why they had the Defensive Player of the Year. So, but you never know. I mean, he could win MVP the way he's playing this year. But right now, my front runner is going to be DeMarco Murray from the Dallas Cowboys.
Holden.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Phillip Rivers, the quarterback for the San Diego Chargers. I mean, coming off last year where he was voted Most Improved Player of the Year, coming off the great Pro Bowl season he had last year, a lot of people expected him to have a down year actually this year because Ken Whisenhunt, the offensive coordinator of the Chargers, left to take the head coaching job with the Tennessee Titans. So a lot of people expected, Phillip Rivers, he doesn't have Ken Whisenhunt anymore, who's like a quarterback whisperer. How is he going to do this season? I think he's proved the doubters wrong. He's definitely, just put up massive numbers this year. I mean, you look at what he did against Seattle, the top defense in the NFL by most critics. You look what he did against Rex Ryan's defense, the Jets. 31-0. You put up 31 points against Rex Ryan, I'm going to consider you as an NFL MVP candidate. You look at the squad. If they took away Phillip Rivers and you put in Andrew Luck, I don't think this squad would be the same. Phillip Rivers finds ways to win. He's just a competitive fighter, and he's the fire for this team. And I just love the way he's playing. If I have to go with another candidate, it would probably be Russell Wilson. I just love the way he's playing right now. He doesn't make any mistakes, and he always makes plays. That's what I love about him. He never makes a mistake, but he always makes the play to keep the game alive. And I think Russell Wilson's a sleeper candidate.
I think I'm going to go with Andrew Luck. I think that he's leading the league in basically every category when it comes to quarterbacks, even leading in rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks. So I think that's hard to go against him. Without him, Indianapolis is just another team. He brings them to the next level. I have to disagree with you saying that if he was put in San Diego, he wouldn't be doing the same stuff Phillip Rivers is, just because Phillip Rivers has a lot of weapons on that side. You got Antonio Gates, Keenan Allen, arguably the best route runner in the NFL, and Eddie Royal's really come alive for them. Ex-Denver Bronco played very well for them. And Malcolm Floyd obviously still there. That's 3 or 4 good receivers that could be used by Phillip Rivers. And if Andrew Luck was in San Diego, the same. But I think that Andrew Luck's I think he's clearly established himself as an elite QB in the league. Most of us had him in our top 5 if we were to do that. So I think that he's definitely going to be a legitimate MVP candidate. You look around, obviously Peyton Manning always comes up in the conversation. He definitely earned it last year. Had an incredible year with the Denver Broncos that brought him all the way to the Super Bowl. Obviously that didn't end the way they wanted to. So it's hard to have an MVP talk without putting his name in it. And I think right now, though, Andrew Luck is definitely my favorite just because of what he's done in Indianapolis and just I mean, obviously started 0-2, but those were two tough teams to play. Obviously, the Broncos and the Eagles, two playoff teams, and they played them well. I mean, arguably in the Eagles game, if that pass interference isn't called or the holding it gets called, then
they win.
Indianapolis wins the game. So it's hard to argue against him right now. I think that he's definitely putting himself in the elite category at the quarterback position in the NFL. Moving on, we're going to talk about college football. Obviously, the first playoff mock thing that they're doing here, where all the analysts pick who their top 4 teams would be, is coming out the 28th of October. So we're going to do ours right now. We wrote down our 4 teams that would be in. Justin's, Holden, and mine. Justin had Florida State, TCU, Auburn, and Oregon. Holden had Florida State, Notre Dame, Mississippi State, and Baylor. And I had Florida State, Auburn, Michigan State, and Oregon. Holden, we'll start with you. Why did you pick your teams? What do you see?
Florida State. I have to pick Florida State because of Jameis Winston, the reigning Heisman winner, and also Florida State being the reigning defending national champions. I just love the way they're playing right now. They played Clemson on a big primetime night game, and they demolished them. I just love the way they're playing right now. Then you look at Mississippi State with Dak Prescott at quarterback, who's a Heisman candidate, and I think a serious contender to win the Heisman this year. I mean, you look at what they did against Texas A&M. He matched up very well and beat Kenny Hill, the quarterback for Texas A&M. So he went toe-to-toe with him, and he showed that he's the stronger quarterback. So I love what Mississippi State's doing right now in the SEC. Then you look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's had a couple primetime games. They beat Stanford, and I thought after beating Stanford, that's when I seriously considered Notre Dame to be a serious contender this year, because Stanford's a ranked team, and you don't mess with Stanford. They're a serious contender as well. So I love what Notre Dame's doing right now. Everett Golson's looking like a different quarterback from the last time we saw him. Over the summer, he worked out with a quarterback coach and refined.
I'll put you on hold real quick. We do have a call.
Welcome to Sports Talk. Thank you for your call.
Hello?
Hello?
I think you might have hung up on him.
Oh, all right. Go ahead.
Like I was saying, Everett Golson worked out with a quarterback coach this summer, and you can see the practice has paid off. His mechanics look flawless. He's delivering the ball on point with accuracy and strength. So I really love what Everett Golson's doing this year. And I don't know. I mean, my last team, Baylor, they're sort of like a dark horse. I love Bryce Petty as a quarterback. He's always consistently put up huge numbers in that pass-friendly offense that Art Briles runs over there in Waco, Texas. I just love the way Baylor's looking offensively on the offensive side of the ball right now. If this team doesn't put up 40 points a game, they don't win, but they manage to do that every game. So I really love how Baylor's looking in the Big 12.
We got a call. Welcome to Sports Talk. Thank you for your call. Hello?
Go ahead.
So like I said, yes, Baylor, definitely a candidate. I think not being in the Big 12 compared to the SEC, you have to be a little wary about Baylor. Are they a serious contender? But I really love how their offense is looking, and I think that could be the key this year.
Justin?
We got another call coming in. Hello, welcome to Sports Talk. Hello?
Looks like we're having technical difficulties over here with the phone. Justin, go over your 4.
I'll go with my picks. I had Florida State, TCU, Auburn, and Oregon. Florida State, for obvious reasons, Jameis Winston. TCU, they had a big win over Oklahoma. And Auburn, I mean, I think after their loss, people kind of started downing them, but I think this team will just come back as they did in previous years, and I think they're a team to contend with. However, I think they'll be the 4 seed, possibly have to go up against Florida State. I don't think they'll get into the 1 or 2 seeds, and I don't think they'll win the first game, so I don't think they'll go for a national championship. Oregon, I mean, I just think this team is, there every single year. I think they'll be there again. I'm going to put them at the 3, Auburn at my 4. I'm going to go with Florida State at 1, TCU at 2, with Florida State coming out victorious again. But there is some problems with Florida State. I mean, if Jameis Winston continues to have his off-field issues, could this affect the team? I don't know. I mean, the team is good besides him, but he's the leader on the team. If he goes down, it'd be similar to, like, for example, the Broncos. I mean, they got great players around him, but if Peyton Manning goes down, I mean, they're definitely not the same team as they are. So I just think he has a similar effect with Jameis Winston and Florida State. So I think Florida State, if Jameis Winston can stay the leader, I think they'll win the national title.
My picks were Florida State, Auburn, Michigan State, and Oregon. For Florida State, obviously, they were there last year. I really don't think they have any games left on their schedule where they're really going to get challenged. So I really don't see them moving from the top seed just because I don't think they're going to be upset by anyone. Obviously, the game they had to win against Clemson, Jameis Winston was suspended for it. I mean, it was a battle, went to OT. So obviously they're able to come out on top since they're still the number one team in the nation. So I think that they're just going to be there just because I don't think there's really anyone left on their schedule that's going to threaten to knock them off. With Auburn, don't look now, but Nick Marshall is slowly becoming a passing quarterback. I mean, this guy all last year was basically just their running quarterback. They would run, option plays, whatever it was with him. But this year, he's really become more of a pocket passer. I'm not going to call him, a pocket passer by any means, but he's definitely passing more, helping the offense run through him that way, just because it adds another dimension to the offense. So I think that this offense was really good last year, but it could become even more dynamic if he's able to hit some big plays. And you always worry with an offense like that, what happens when there's 2 minutes left in the game and you gotta rush downfield to try to get a field goal or a touchdown or whatever it is. But with him being able to pass a little bit, it could really open up that situation and maybe almost eliminate that doubt you have in Auburn. And then 3, I have Michigan State. Obviously, they're facing undefeated Nebraska. They had a big win there. I think that this team is always kind of the team that's forgotten almost. They're always good, but being in the Big Ten, they don't really play anybody. So obviously they won against Ohio State when they were undefeated last year. That was a big game. Played in the Rose Bowl, did well. So I think that this team, with the new 4-team playoff, I think that they may have a shot to finally go for the win they have. And obviously with a lot of the teams in the top 10 right now being in the SEC or top 15 being in the SEC, if those teams kind of knock each other off, you look at Michigan State having the opportunity to possibly jump into the top 4. And then obviously I have Oregon just because Marcus Mariota, obviously another Heisman candidate. He's so good. I mean, obviously their loss to Arizona is going to hurt them. But Arizona always plays them well, so I don't know if that loss is going to bump them out of contention completely. Obviously a one-loss team could possibly get in. So I think that if it is someone, it could be them just because I think they'll win out the rest of their games and then they'll be in that position to possibly sneak in as the 3 or 4 seed maybe. So as of right now, that's my 4. And I think that any of these teams, I think if these were the 4 teams in it, it'd be a great tournament. Obviously, it's not going to be SEC dominant because you'd have a team from the ACC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12. So it'd be cool to definitely see that. But I do believe that the SEC definitely needs to be represented just because the most powerful conference in national, and then the nation, you can't leave them out. So I'm not going to say they should get an automatic bid this year, but I think in years to come you got to look at them maybe being a team that the SEC champion gets an automatic bid in the college football playoff. But moving on, we're going to go to the NBA. We're going to do a new segment we have called Something or Nothing. We're going to go through some topics and say if they're relevant or not. So first, we're going to talk about Kobe's first game back. Obviously, it was a preseason game. Played 21 minutes, had 13 points, 2 rebounds, and 5 assists. I mean, he looked better than he has in a while. Justin, is this something or nothing?
This is something for his assist because I think when he came back from last year with his Achilles, not his Achilles injury. What did he have? A foot, knee injury?
Yeah.
When he came back last year before he got his Achilles injury, I remember people were comparing, maybe is he going to take over Steve Nash's title as the passer on the team because he was getting like 10, 12 assists a game for over a week or 2 period, not for the season. But I think those 4 assists are assigned things to come. I think he's going to try to be more of a passer this year. I mean, they got Jeremy Lin as their point guard this year.
We have an incoming call.
Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hi, how are you? I got a fantasy football question.
Sure.
Well, I just want to know how in trouble I am this week. I got Vernon Davis, Aaron Foster, and Calvin Johnson. I mean, are any of them going to put anything on the board this week, or what do you guys think?
Thank you for your call.
Okay, thanks.
I think you'd have to be worried about Calvin Johnson just because rumors of him possibly not even playing, the Lions possibly sitting him. So probably not a guy you should start heading into the week if there's possibility of him not playing. So I would definitely look to see who you would have after that. And then for Vernon Davis, if he does play, he's always going to just be a red zone target, even if he only has one catch for a touchdown. I mean, that's still 6 points. Tight ends are few and far between. It's not like you're going to be able to add a guy in fantasy that's going to put up numbers. So I think if he is playing, definitely give him a shot. Could probably do better than whoever else you have on the bench. And for Arian Foster, if he's in the game, he's definitely going to do very good. Obviously, against Dallas, he played really well, had great numbers. So I think that if he's probable, maybe start him. But if he's questionable, if you have another running back that you feel is suitable and can do a fine job, then I'd definitely try to put him in. But if Arian Foster becomes probable, I definitely think about starting him just because of how much of the offense revolves around him, with them not really having an elite quarterback with Ryan Fitzpatrick running the offense. So I think definitely try to start him if he's probable.
Holden?
Definitely. All three of these guys are question marks. I mean, you look at Calvin Johnson, he's had ankle issues all season, and last week he had to leave the game early. So and like you said, the Lions are thinking about sitting him for next week's game. Then you look at Arian Foster, coming off back surgery from last season into this season, and he's had a history of being plagued with hamstring issues. So I look at Arian Foster, and he's always a question mark week to week. Then you look at Vernon Davis, who's had issues like Arian Foster with his hamstring, and then just 2 weeks ago he hurt his back in the game against Philly. So you look at Vernon Davis, I think he's another question mark, especially with that. When you hurt your back, you know something's up, and that I would definitely consider sitting Vernon Davis out, possibly playing Arian Foster, and definitely sitting Calvin Johnson out.
I'm going to sort of agree with both of you in some sense. If I were you, I would start Calvin Johnson, start Arian Foster, sit Vernon Davis. Start Vernon Davis, start Arian Foster, sit Calvin Johnson, especially if he doesn't play this week. I mean, you don't want to get caught by starting him and then maybe he doesn't play, or even if he does, it could turn into a situation where maybe he's on the sideline half the game or he doesn't really get a big playoff. I think you got to keep Vernon Davis, as Jeremy said. You're not going to pick up I'm sure there's not a star tight end still on the waiver list. So, and as far as Arian Foster goes, I think this guy's in the game. I mean, he could have an impactful, he could be very impactful for your team. He is really, him and JJ Watt are basically the whole, and maybe you could throw an Andre Johnson in there, but are the whole Texans team. And I mean, this guy's going to be running the ball a lot. So, I mean, if he gets a lot of carries, if he stays healthy and stays on the field, I think he'll be a powerful asset for your team. So I'm going to play Vernon Davis and Arian Foster, sit Calvin Johnson just for this week, but just for this week only. If he's healthy, you got to play Calvin Johnson.
Getting back to Kobe's preseason debut, finish your thoughts on that?
Like I said, I want to see his assist numbers go up. But as far as his scoring, and going back to his assist, they got Nick Young on a pretty big deal over the offseason. They kept Nick Young. So I think when Nick Young's on the court with him, I think they're going to want to have Nick Young be their dominant scorer and have Kobe maybe run the offense. I mean, they don't want him to be, run the point in a tight game because you don't want him to get hurt again. But Kobe's Kobe. I mean, he's going to get his points. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he averages, 25 points a game this year, or 25 points over a stretch of a lot of games. Maybe a month he could average, 25 or 30. I mean, this guy is just a dominant scorer. I mean, I think even when he's 40 years old, I think he can come back in the league and drop 25 on anybody. I mean, this guy could shoot from anywhere. He fade away. This guy gets to the free throw line. He makes his free throws. I want to see his assists go up, but I think this is something because of his assist. But he did have 3 turnovers in the game. I hope that doesn't turn into a problem for him. But overall, I think Kobe's going to have a great season, and I hope this preseason was a sign of things to come.
I definitely think this was something great with Kobe in that preseason game. He only had 13 points, 21 minutes, but watching him play, I didn't see a lot of the athletic ability he once had. The speed,
number 8 Kobe.
The hops, even from 2 seasons ago, the hops, the leaping ability, the athleticism. Obviously, he's still coming off that Achilles injury, so I don't think he'll have that athletic ability ever again, but his fundamentals and his technique are still there. I mean, I loved how he was hitting a lot of his fadeaway jumpers in that preseason game. I loved how the J was falling. He was getting into the lane, drawing those fouls, and getting to the free throw line. Kobe's losing his athletic ability, but his mental ability is still there. He's growing smarter and knows how to score, and knows how to score efficiently. So I think this is definitely something bright with Kobe. He looked fresh. I mean, he looked pretty healthy to me, and I'm looking forward to how he'll play this season.
I mean, obviously Kobe's Kobe. He's going to score. But I'm going to say this is nothing just because of how irrelevant I think the Lakers are going to be this year when it comes to the NBA.
Carlos Boozer, man.
I don't even see them being in the playoff picture here. I think that this team they had probably the biggest bust in the offseason this summer. I mean, rumors of LeBron and Melo both going there and them having a big three with, arguably the top 3 scorers in the NBA. And then you get nothing, and your biggest addition is Carlos Boozer.
They got Jeremy Lin. Don't forget about him.
Oh, Jeremy Lin. I'm
Jeremy
sorry.
Lin.
Julius Randle,
I think the biggest thing they did was get Julius Randle. That was one of my favorite players
Swaggy
in this
P.
draft.
He dunked on
out.
somebody the other night.
Yeah, Julius Randle, I think he's going to do really well. I like the way he plays, but this year I don't think the Lakers really have much going. So I'm going to have to shy away from this Kobe topic because I don't think we're going to be hearing much out of LA other than from the Clippers.
Brian Scott, head coach.
Going back to the stats really quick, if he plays 40 minutes in a really key game, I mean, if he played 21 minutes, you could double that, 26 points,
10 assists,
4 rebounds, I mean, 6 turnovers, but I mean, those are some pretty good numbers, and honestly, if Kobe gets hot, he could drop even more. This was a preseason game. I don't think he was playing 100% by any means, so I think his number's only going to go from here.
Moving on, another something or nothing topic we have is Ray Allen signing with the Cavaliers. Holden, what do you think about this?
I think this is a great addition by the Cavaliers. Rumors were that Ray Allen was considering retirement unless there was an offer from Cleveland on the table with LeBron. And this is a great move because you look at what Cleveland's doing. They're building a squad similar to what was down in Miami, a squad based on floor spacing and three-point shooting. You look at the roster right now, you have Mike Miller and you have Kevin Love. Those two guys are deadly behind the three-point line, and now you're adding Ray Allen, who's one of the greatest three-point shooters in NBA history. So I love this move for Cleveland. Coach Blatt of the Cavaliers is offensive-minded. That's his area of expertise, and I think he's going to do what Coach Spoelstra did in Miami, a game predicated upon LeBron running the show, spacing the floor, and allowing guys like Ray Allen, Mike Miller, and Kevin Love to get their open shots.
I think this is something just in the sense it'll help out team chemistry. However, I don't think this is, a big deal because I think at the most he'll get maybe 2-3 3-pointers a game. He's not going to be, dunking on anybody, going into the lane. He's going to be in the corner waiting for a pass from LeBron, K-Love, or Kyrie, and he's just going to pull up. So it is nice just to help out the team chemistry. I don't think this guy's going to have a monster season by any means. He'll be there, a veteran. Maybe he could help out a guy like Deion Waiters, who I don't think he really knows his place in the NBA right now. Maybe Ray Allen, a veteran, could lead him to that. As Holden mentioned, they got Mike Miller there. Another Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, they'll all be there to be shooting. This team's going to have great floor spacing. LeBron could basically do everything and just kick it out. It could be LeBron and 4 shooters on the court at one time. I think it was a good signing. However, it's not something that's going to make or break this team. I mean, if they were going to win a championship, it's not because of Ray Allen, and it's not. And if they do have him, or if they don't have him, it wouldn't make a difference. They're not going to win with or without him. I mean, they are going to win with or without him.
I think that this is definitely something. I think Ray Allen, obviously being probably the best three-point shooter in all time, obviously he's hit the most, more than anybody else has. This is something just because of the presence he has on the floor. You think about it, Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and LeBron James misses the big three. Rebound somehow gets out to Ray Allen. He hits an insane three-shot.
Yeah.
I mean, if he doesn't hit that shot, the Miami Heat don't have a trophy right now. I think that this guy's presence on the court is so huge. You think about what they could do if the Cavs have 5 seconds left and it's a 2-point game. You could have Kyrie, LeBron, and then Ray Allen sitting in the corner. I mean, you think about the inbound plays they could run there.
On that?
Yeah, he's just a presence. I mean, you have to have someone standing next to Ray Allen when a 3-point shot's going to win the game. And this could come down big in the postseason. This guy hits big shots. It's not like he fades away in the postseason or, he's not the same guy he is. He hits the big shots, whether it's regular season, postseason, the NBA Finals, Game 6 with the clock running down. I mean, that's an iconic play in NBA history right there. I think that just having this guy on the roster is huge. I personally want him to go to the Spurs. I thought that would have been an awesome signing by them, but obviously this is final. He's going to the Cavs. But I think that this is definitely going to be a big signing for them. It's just more depth that this team has. It's just one more guy that they have that can space the floor, one more guy that's a threat on offense, and I think that this team is definitely going to be hard to beat in the Eastern Conference.
Having said that, Holden mentioned this is similar to the Miami Heat. I hope it doesn't turn into a situation where if a guy like Kevin Love or Kyrie goes down with an injury, I hope it doesn't turn into LeBron doing everything because, Deion Waiters is a solid player, but other than that, you got some old guys coming off your bench. So I hope it doesn't turn into a situation like the Heat last year where LeBron's literally doing everything and he has no help. I don't think it will because of Kyrie and Kevin Kyrie and Kevin Love are both young players, so they're not very injury prone. I don't want to see that happen. I don't think it will, but it's still a possibility when you got those older guys coming off your bench. But
you think about their bench. Like, they do have the older guys, but they also have guys like Tristan Thompson, Deion Waiters. These guys are young. You know, they're going to be able to play the minutes. I mean, obviously, their bench does have a lot of guys that are older, and the Ray Allens and the Mike Millers and all those guys, but they do have younger guys coming off, so I think that could balance it out. I mean, maybe there's still a problem, but I think that these guys are definitely going to be happy to get a ton of minutes. The guys like Deion Waiters and Tristan Thompson, the guys like that, that'll be coming off the bench as well.
I agree.
Moving on, we're going to talk about go back to, actually, we'll stay on the NBA. We're going to talk about, obviously, the NBA signing a big contract with Disney. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more money coming their way for broadcasting the NBA games. And we're going to talk about the possibility of the NBA getting rid of a max deal. Obviously, Mark Cuban said that if the players were willing to give up something big in return, that the owners would definitely think about implementing or de-implementing a max deal in the NBA. So, Holden, what are your thoughts on this?
I definitely think the NBA is looking pretty good right now. I mean, aside from the Donald Sterling scandal, the NBA is raking in a lot of money right now as it is. And I think definitely if I want to see a change in the league, it's the fact that smaller market teams can't sustain their continued success because of the amount of money they can't offer a player. I mean, you look at the premier destinations for free agency: Miami, Los Angeles, New York, Boston even. These cities can offer larger money deals. I mean, you look at Melo, he got a 5-year, $124 million contract, yet in Indiana, Paul George only got 5 years and $90 million. So I definitely, if I want to see a change, it's definitely the ability to get smaller market teams the ability to offer larger sum contracts so that teams like Indiana, teams like Phoenix, teams like Minnesota can keep their star players and continue to add other marquee names and compete in the league for years to come.
Is that possible, though? Do you feel like that is a legitimate proposal?
I think definitely if there's in the next round of negotiations coming up between the owners and the Players Association, some deal could be worked out to allow teams like Indiana, like Phoenix, to retain their players. I mean, you look at Phoenix right now, they were able to keep Eric Bledsoe, but then you look at a team like Minnesota, that Kevin Love, he eventually left because Minnesota couldn't surround him with other star players. So definitely I want to see something happen that allow Minnesota to compete against teams like Miami in free agency.
I mean, I see what you're saying about Minnesota, but let's not. I mean, the past 3 or 4, they had 3 or 4 top 10 picks, lottery picks that are busts right now. I mean, Wesley Johnson. Who else do they got? I mean, the list goes on and on, but I forget the players right now. But, I mean, Wesley Johnson just one guy that comes to mind right now. I mean, he's on the Lakers right now. And, I mean, yeah, he's a starter, but he's getting, 12 points a game. So I see what you're saying about the smaller market teams, but the Timberwolves were bad every year because they didn't do a very good job drafting. So, I mean, you could blame it on free agents, but even if they offered a lot of money, I mean, no free agent's going to be like, I mean, I know Kevin Love was there, but if the team's not good every year, no free agent's going to drop everything and go there. But like you said, they don't have as much money to offer as maybe a New York or a Boston. So I do agree with what you're saying there. I do want to get rid of the max contracts in the NBA because if you look at Kevin Durant, I mean, maybe this guy can go play with, for example, LeBron. But if they both want the max contract, it can't work out. But if he takes a pay cut because he's getting all the money from Under Armour and LeBron's getting all his money from McDonald's and all that stuff, and then you got John Wall with Reebok, all these guys signing big shoe deals. Endorsements, yeah. I mean, they could be making money from there, taking less pay cuts and winning on the court. I mean, all these players are they never win a championship. I mean, Melo, instead of taking a pay cut and going to Chicago, where maybe they could be a title contender this year, goes to New York. I mean, Phil Jackson with the triangle offense and all that stuff, maybe they could grow for the future. But what if he doesn't win a title in 5 years? What if the triangle doesn't work and then he's a 36-year-old star trying to find a team where he could win a superstar? I mean, Carmelo's too good not to have a ring right now. I think if you get rid of the max contract, superstars will join up. But that could cause problems because if superstars join up it could turn into like big threes on like 5 or 6 teams, and the rest of the teams aren't good. It's just dominated by 6 teams. So I think you should get rid of it, just because I think players are making too much money with endorsements and other off the court things that they could take pay cuts in order to make the game better. So I want to get rid of the max contract. I mean, you could still offer them a lot of money. I mean, you don't need to be offering like the Melo deal. I think he could have offered less, maybe like 5 years, $80 million, with all the money he's getting off the court. So I would like to get rid of it, but
I think the max contract, in a sense, is good, because if we get rid of the max contract, all of a sudden negotiations between players and their respective teams, or teams coming after them in free agency, I mean, these negotiations could go for months or for weeks. And we're like, when are you just going to show up to camp and start playing for a team? So I really love, actually, the idea of a max contract, because you're setting a cap, you're setting a limit, and then that allows you to pursue other players.
But in some cases, the max contract is what the players want. And that's like, if you look at Eric Bledsoe, he wanted the max deal. Suns didn't want to give it to him. It took a while for them to sign. I mean, that's a kind of a weird scenario. I agree with what you're saying, where you don't want it to drag out. You don't want these deals to take a while, because, I mean, personally, I'm a big NBA fan. I was pretty annoyed with the Eric Bledsoe situation, because I just wanted to see him go to a team, because I really enjoy, seeing how teams grow. I don't like when free agents are taking this long to sign. So I know what you're saying with, I think if they take away the max contract, it might take a while, but at the same time, if there's no max contracts, maybe any team can go. You might just want to go to any team because money's not really an option. But there's problems with any situation. I mean, whenever there's money involved, there's going to be, egos involved and stuff, but I agree with both sides.
I think that the max contract stops a team from offering a player a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, you think about it. If there's no max contract, Mark Cuban can throw 10 years, $300 million LeBron James way, and it's hard to turn that down, obviously. But it'd be interesting. I think what they would have to do was offer almost no max contract if they were to get rid of it, but maintain a salary cap, just so players aren't getting insane amounts of money.
Cap, yeah.
That's definitely a big thing. You look at MLB, they don't have a salary cap, and teams like Boston, New York, LA,
Dodgers,
any of those LA teams, Dodgers or Angels, they could throw insane amounts of money at people and do it for multiple players and not have a problem. I mean, obviously they have if you go over, you get taxed, or the luxury tax, whatever it is, but these teams don't care about that. They make their money off of, the extra games they play in the postseason or whatever it is. But I think that the max contract, to get rid of it, you'd have to maintain the salary cap. But I think if they're to get rid of something, I think the restricted free agent, I think that's a big thing, because I think if these two sides were to get together, being the players and the owners, I think the players would really look to get rid of being restricted, because that hurts you in negotiations and whatever it is. I mean, Eric Bledsoe, I don't think wants to be in Phoenix right now, but there's nothing he could do, because he goes to a team like, say, in Minnesota and says, I would like this much amount of money, and they're like, well, I'm not going to offer it to you because Phoenix is just going to match it. It's almost a waste of the other team's time. So I think that the players are going to go after anything. It should definitely be the idea of no restricted free agents, just everyone's unrestricted. And the only thing I think that this max contract takes care of would be the stars in the league. I think that the Kevin Durant, the LeBron James would be making $6 million more, but then you look at the middle of the range players, maybe a guy like Nick Young has to make less because the Lakers are investing $6 million more in Kevin Durant than they would have been if the max contract
was still
was still
around. And the guys like
around.
Nick Young don't have endorsements off the field as to the magnitude of a guys like Kevin Durant. So it's tough both ways, but I know what you're saying, yeah.
It just depends on which way you look at it. And then for our last something or nothing topic, we're going to go with Peyton Manning approaching 500 touchdowns. Obviously, Brett Favre being the only person that has surpassed this. Justin, is this something or nothing?
This is something if you're a stat freak, but if you're a guy, I don't like when people are labeled by how many rings they have. So I'm going to say this is something because Peyton Manning has proven he's the best regular season quarterback in today's game, definitely, but possibly of all time. I mean, and he's definitely proven it with that right there, but he's got to get some rings on his fingers. I mean, he's got one. I think he'll get another one by the end of the season. I think if he had more, this would be a bigger stat because people would be like, look at all the rings he's got and look what he's doing in the regular season. He's not just some guy like, it's not like Eli Manning where he's going 7-9 and they just kind of like fly through the playoffs, maybe get lucky a few games, the gum on the helmet catch, all that stuff. So it is it's a great stat for anybody, but I just think he's got to get more rings on his fingers. If he had more rings, he'd be recognized even more. I don't agree with it. I think he should be recognized a lot for what he's done right now. I mean, getting 500 touchdowns is huge, but I feel bad for him because he's not getting the credit he deserves. This one's tough because I don't know if it's something. It's something in the sense that it's big, but is it nothing in the sense that he has no rings? I'm just kind of conflicted with those two sides.
Alden?
This is definitely something. I mean, you look at Peyton Manning, he's probably, like you said earlier, one of the best regular season quarterbacks of all time. He has a Super Bowl ring. And also, you look at what he's had to come back from, the adversity. He had to come off 4 neck surgeries when he arrived in Denver. Coming off 4 neck surgeries, and he's producing the seasons he's produced. I mean, he's playing lights out. He's a top 10 quarterback all time for sure, and surpassing this milestone of over 500 touchdowns is just another accolade to his resume and just proves what a dominant force he is in the NFL. So I think definitely this is something, and Peyton Manning's just proving that no matter his age, he can still produce.
Do you think that his lack of rings?
I have to say that his lack of rings definitely is going to hurt him if he wants to be considered the greatest quarterback of all time. But I think that you could definitely say he's the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. No one matches him in the regular season, but in the playoffs, it's debatable as to who you're taking. But quickly, we're just going to run through our pick and wins for this week. We're going to go through all the matchups and pick who we think is going to come out. First, we're going to start with Colts versus Texans. Justin, who do you have?
I'm going with the Colts here.
Holden?
Colts.
I'm going to take the Colts, too. I think that they could arguably be the best team in the AFC right now. New England versus Buffalo.
I'm going with Buffalo, my team.
New England.
New England. They're in Buffalo, so...
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with New England here, too.
Okay.
Then we have Baltimore versus the Bucs.
Baltimore. I hate to say it.
I'm going to go with Baltimore. Joe Flacco's looking pretty good right now, especially Steve Smith as well.
I think after the Bucs disappointed lost to the Saints, I think they're going to come with 1-1 here. Pittsburgh versus Cleveland.
Going with Cleveland.
I'm going with Pittsburgh.
Jeremy?
I'm going to go with Cleveland, too. I think that Brian Hurd's been playing well. Carolina versus Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
I'm going to pick Carolina. I love the way Kelvin Benjamin's playing, and after the Cincinnati Bengals getting embarrassed by the Patriots, I don't know how they're going to respond to this.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, too. I'm going to go with Carolina. Denver versus the Jets. Do we even have to go through this?
I'm going with the Jets here. I think the Jets
You're not going with the Jets. You're going with Denver.
I'm going with the Jets here.
You're going with Denver.
Write down Denver for me.
You're going with Denver.
Oh, wait, upset.
Hold on,
I'm going with Denver as well.
Denver.
Front runner.
We have Detroit versus Minnesota.
If Calvin Johnson plays, no, I'm going with Detroit. I don't know. This one's tough.
Yeah, I'm going with Detroit regardless.
I'm going with Detroit because I don't know who Minnesota's quarterback is.
Well,
Green Bay versus Miami.
Miami. I don't think Green Bay's legit this year at all.
All right.
Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Jacksonville versus the Titans.
Titans.
I'm going Jacksonville.
I'm going to go Jacksonville, too.
Okay.
San Diego versus Oakland.
San Diego.
San Diego. Philip Rivers.
San Diego is really good. Dallas versus Seattle.
Dallas, upset pick of the week.
Seattle. It's in Seattle.
No. Yeah, it's in Seattle.
Marco Murray.
Washington versus the Cardinals.
Cardinals. My best team in the NFL right now.
I'm going Washington.
I'm going to go with the Cardinals. Giants versus Eagles.
Eagles. I don't care.
I'm going Giants. I love the way the Giants offense looks right now.
The Giants.
We have 49ers, Rams.
49ers.
Rams.
Rams are home, but I'm going with the 49ers.
Front runner.
Well, that's all we have for this edition of Sports Talk. I'm Jeremy Farina.
I'm Justin Palillo.
And I'm Holden Pirelli.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.